Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Hopefully, you can't hear the washing machine in the background. And today is how to play support for D&D in 2024. So I decided maybe it should be best if I start doing a table of contents for my video. So we're first going to go over what is a support, and then the support classes from the primary classes, the secondary classes, and then the tertiary classes. We will then go into the spell lists for the support's healing tools, their buff tools, their debuff tools, and their protection tools. And finally, combat guide for when in combat for healing, buffing, or debuffing, and then protective magic. So, what is a support? A support's main job is to help the rest of their team and allies do their job better, either through buffing them, debuffing enemies, healing them to make them last longer, or protecting them from attacks and other negative effects. I define buffs as anything that increases the odds of success, so pure numbers for me, including advantage or disadvantage. Same thing for debuffs, lowering the hit rates or the enemy's abilities, or giving them disadvantage or slowing them down, anything like that. As for healing, quite self-explanatory. It keeps your party alive and up in the fight. And as for protection, these are stronger defenses to avoid damage altogether. So the main classes for supports. Three main classes for supports are clerics, druids, and bars. Clerics excel at healing and protecting their allies, as well as do a reasonably good job at buffing buffing their allies and debuffing their enemies. They have a very diverse spell list in this role, which is probably why they're the de facto support. Their abilities and subclasses either double down on any one of these roles. Druids. Druids are very dependent on their subclass for their support skills. That's where most of them come from. On top of that, the spell list is more geared towards battlefield control, but does provide healing and protective abilities. As for the bards, they excel at buffing and debuffing allies and debuffing enemies. A good portion of their spells are geared towards this kind of playstyle. On top of their abilities such as Bardic Inspiration, while you do have most of the healing spells, you do lack some critical ones for the Bard class, such as Revivify, until you get Magical Secrets at level 10. So be wary about that. As for secondary classes, these could support fine, but they really need something else with them. Either primary class would be excellent, or a tertiary class would be just fine as well. So paladins, and specifically the alchemist artificer, are my secondary classes. A paladin, only being a half-caster, doesn't quite have the expansive support abilities. Sorry, a paladin, only being half-caster, it doesn't have quite the expansive spell list, but it does provide good support abilities. Lay on Hands, a lot of the Channel Divinity options, Aura of Protection, and Aura of Courage. Oh, I need to cough, hold on. Aura of Courage make the paladins the protectors and healer roles. They're somewhat able to buff and debuff as well with their spell list. The Artificer, Alchemist, and the Artificer in general. The Artificer grants supportive gear for their allies, helping them with their spellcasting, normally providing buffs and protections for them. Flash of Genius can provide with skill checks. With spell storing items, you can put a lot of weaker support spells, healing or protective, without having to pay the cost or tax as a spellcaster. However, this is not enough on its own. Luckily, the secondary support, the Alchemist, comes providing with 4 extra healing spells. Alchemist Supplies, as a free thing you get and know how to use. A chance of getting a healing potion. Alchemist Savant for more potent healing, along with the other 2 subclass abilities that are also geared towards supporting. As for tertiary classes, these are all people who can, or classes or subclasses who can do some support of this, but it's not their main job. But if either the primary or secondary support goes down, this is where these members pick up the pace. We have the baseline artificer. I've already explained what they can do. We have the ranger. We have the Way of Mercy monk. We have the clockwork soul sorcerer. We have the warlock celestial patron, and we have the thief rogue. I'll get into that one. So, I've already explained the artificer previously. The magical items and Savant allows you to ignore some class restrictions. That's just something that happens later on, which you can use magical items that you could normally not use. That could be provided with some of the druid and cleric ones that are locked to those two, or paladin that are locked. As for the ranger, you do provide some debuffing and healing in your spell list, but you don't have any active support abilities, so it's all in your spell list. With the Way of Mercy monk, you have access to just pure healing and a little bit of anti-ailment curement with the herbalism kit, the Hand of Healing, the Curing Ailments, the Fury of Healing, which is more healing, and then you get one free Revivify per day. With the Revivify Plus, it's a really good pickup in case one dies. As for the Clockwork Sword, you provide buffs and protection. You don't have any healing until level 18, so it's just for buffs and protections. You can restore balance to neutralize advantage and disadvantage, Bastion of the Law to your averages, Clockwork Cavalcade, which does a bunch of supportive stuff, including healing, but again, only does it at level 18, so be warned, this is not a heal-focused support class. As for the Celestial Patron Warlock, you have 40 healing spells. Healing Light, which is a weaker version of Lay on Hands. Searing Vengeance, which allows you to free action heal someone to max half their HP when they go down. This is before they die, though, so that's different from the Way of Mercy, and does a lot of extra damage to those around you. Finally, the Thief Rogue. Alright, so rogues, no natural healing in their kit, obviously, but the Thief Rogue's fast hands are really great to work with the Healer's Feat, which means they can heal with a bonus action, and a good amount too, based off of a gold economy instead of a spell list economy. They can use magical items a lot faster because the other one takes them a bonus action. They can also use other objects, like normal ones like barbarians, to get that more crowd control field. They can use magical devices such as spell scrolls and any magical item later on at 13th level, I want to say. The point with this is that when they need to, they could provide quick, fast support without taking away from their main action of sneak attack. I think Thief Rogue, when built right, is a really strong class. Spell lists. We will be first going off of all of the healing spells. Now, you may look at this and realize, hey, some of these aren't exactly healing spells. For me, if its goal is to provide temporary hit points, I would also include that. We have cantrips like Spare the Dying, which prevents you from fully dying off, but we have our more normal ones like Cure Wounds, Healing Word, and Goodberry. Goodberry is now a bonus action, but Healing Words, it's always the best. A nice, clean bonus action. And it got buffed along with Cure Wounds. What else got buffed? Mass Healing Word got buffed. Mass Cure Wounds got buffed. And then one more, I think, but I can't remember it at this moment. Actually, maybe it was only those 4. Anyways, Aid is also a good pickup when you reach spellcasting level 2. It provides a blanket plus 5 maximum HP and heals plus 5 maximum HP to 3 targets, and it upscales every single level with another plus 5 on top. Phenomenal ability, phenomenal spell, barely used. I would like to see it more. Revivify, obviously, at level when you hit spellcasting level 3 at level 5. In case the worst happens, you always have that as backup. Polymorph is here because they changed the rules where you don't actually have to stay in the beast form, or whatever form you polymorphed into, depending on what polymorph it is. So you can just take it as temporary HP and pick something with a lot of it, especially with the CR to level ratio that polymorph uses. Cure Wounds is just pretty strong. It's a lot of hit points of healing. Hero's Feast, very strong. A lot, just like Aid, it provides. I don't know if it was temporary HP or maximum HP. I can't remember off the top of my head, but a lot of other good benefits. And then finally, MS heal is also solid. I highlighted the better ones. Moving, anyone else I have to explain though? Fortify, it's temporary HP. Generate. I wouldn't go with the regenerate. It's kind of too slow. Unless you specifically are having one person getting beaten on again and again and again, then you can use regenerate. Animal shapes, anything's polymorph. Okay, I think I'm done here. Buffing spells! Very good. Classic one. Guidance. This is kind of out of combat, but always hit the guidance button for your allies. Unfortunately, now you have to name the specific skill, so it's a little bit nerfed. But technically, you have repeat tries with that skill for the next minute. I don't think that's how guidance is being used. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is better. Bless is also a nice pickup here. Just a plus a d4 to attack rolls and saving throws for 3 of your allies, and you can target yourself. Jump. I was wrong in my video a while ago. Jump is great. It is just an extra plus 20 to your movement as long as you jump in a straight line 30 feet. So you take a 10 feet run, then you jump 20. It's good. Divine Favor is a nice pickup for the Paladin spell list. Enhance ability, my favorite enhance ability. I am so sad that they got rid of this flavor text for the Strength, Dex, and Constitution enhance abilities, but it's still pretty good. Again, another out of combat one. An in combat one, however, is Pass Without a Trace, which can be used before combat to scout out an area, and then when your party goes to swing through a fight, you can normally all be hidden to start the fight with advantage for your initiative. And actually, you might be considered invisible, having advantage on your first attack. That's nice. Invisibility as well. Good pickup. Mirror Image, significantly buffed. Oh my god, it's so hard to hit you if you put that on. Now, the underlined here are spells from the Artificer spell list. I decided to keep them separate because maybe not all games will have the Artificer spell list. But do keep in mind the Bard is able to have access to some of the wizard spells that are already here. So if you want to find another way to go around and get some of these pickups, you gotta go with the Bard. Crusader's Mantle, I think, is another good buff. It is Divine Favor for everyone. Fly is nice. Haste, I kept it in later in the video, but it's a little bit of a toss-up if you can make sure you maintain haste the whole fight and don't hit your ally with lethargy. Conjure Mighty Elementals is a big one. It does provide some buff abilities, but it's mostly here for damage for yourself. Fountain of Moonlight. I forget what it did, but it was pretty nice. I believe it added extra damage, and it's really good for Druid damage builds where you can, I think, so the Druid of the Moon. Greater invisibility, fantastic. You cannot be knocked out of invisibility unless you fail the con save, but it only lasts a minute. Skill Empowerment is the worst spell in the game. Moving on. Juicing's kind of nice depending on what you're dealing with. Holy Aura was very good, but I forgot what it did. But I know it's good because I put it in bold. Foresight is amazing. I don't know if you would always spend a 9th level spell for it, but it is just purely advantage on all of your attacks at disadvantage for your enemy. I don't think it's concentration. I think it just happens. And then there's choose polymorph to buff you into something massive and broken. Debuffing. This is a bigger list because a lot of your damaging spells from any one of the support spell lists will also come with a debuff. There are new pickups such as Starry Wisps, which will make it easier to hit enemies with invisibility. Vicious Mockery got a tiny boost, but I think its damage die is a little bit too low at the moment. Ray of Frost, classic. Getting rid of that 10 movement might halt their assault on you. Fairy Fire is a great option. Oh my goodness. Having advantage such a low level on a bunch of targets. I think Guiding Bolt is more concentrated on a single target. Cautious City's Laughter will normally take out an enemy. Enemy will be a low what's it called? Initiative into that. Low initiative. A low level cheap spell that can take one enemy out of the fight temporarily. That's what I meant to say. There we go. Wrathful Smite. I forgot what it debuffed, but it was a really strong. I think. No, it's not the Blind Smite. I forgot what it did. And then Ensnaring Strike will just halt the target in its place if they fail the saving throw. Blindness Deafness will now also give the enemy disadvantage on attack rolls while your allies advantage on theirs. Pretty good. Hold Person. Same thing. Not everyone's a person, so that's why Blindness Deafness is more common. But stunning an enemy, perfect. Beautiful. Spiked Growth, the classic grinder. It makes the enemy's assaults hurt and it slows them down, and you can, if you have a good team built around it, you can send them right back in. Suggestion got buffed to no longer needs to being a reasonable suggestion, which you can get some good shenanigans off with that. Shining Smite makes it easier to hit as well as the smite damage. Web, perfect halts, and a Vortex Warp to get your enemy away or in an unfavorable position. As for third level, Hypnotic Pattern is one of the best spells in the game that didn't get nerfed. Let's go. It is fully able to shut down a lot of fights as you pretty much charm everyone to sleep. Slow is a good option if you can't use the charm effects. Banishment. I should have put this probably in protection instead of debuffing, but you completely get rid of someone from the fight, and if they happen to be from out of this dimension and you don't lose concentration, they are completely gone, and you just got rid of an enemy with a 1 spell. A 4th level spell slot, that might have been worth it, depending on what you're fighting. Dominate Beast is good. Giant Insect is insane with that spider's attacks that just halt enemies and they cannot move. It's insane. An Odaluk's Resilient Sphere is good for both debuffing and protecting to keep someone out of the fight. As for level 5, Hollow is great for the one trick with Cleric using it as their channel divinity. Dominate Person, even better than Hold Person, where he gets control of the enemy. Hold Monster, same thing with Hold Person, except now it can do it on anybody. Synaptic Static is fireballs worth of damage, but it's at level 5. But what it does do is it gives them a minus D6 on their attack rolls and saving throws. And maybe even ability checks, I'm not quite sure. I think it is underutilized, but unfortunately it is only going to be on the not on everyone's spell list. But it will be on the bards. I'll show you that. Big B's Hand, it's fine, it's good, it lasts quite a while, but again, it is concentration, so we really want to make sure you're not in the front lines for that. Mass Suggestion, same thing as Suggestion. Divine Word, I love this spell. It's more impactful the lower health the enemy's at. It will wipe out low-level grunts, but if you can bring a lot of your enemies down to quite low, and then you Divine Word, the fight's over. Earthquake is good, but it's more so good because of the damage. Antipathy Sympathy can manipulate an entire fight. or person befuddlement, but the problem is you're not likely to get these off depending on what you're trying to fight. And Dominate Mox is here for the same reason. Storm of Vengeance is something that you could cast if you want to. It's kind of slow. Finally, Protection. Starting off, the cantrips they're fine. You can get some with a Minor Illusion and a small sized enemy where you can Minor Illusion. If you're the Illusionist, not the Illusion. Oh, we're not thinking of the Illusionist right now. So maybe not. But sometimes you can Illusion up protection for your allies. As for protection from good and evil, it's really good if you're going to get someone who, if you're fighting someone who is from out of this world. Shield of Faith is a classic, just +2, great. Lesser Restoration is great to heal up those really bad. What's it called? Those terrible ailments. Blur is just as good as it always has been, but it's so kind of selfish. Vortex work, same thing as before. Dispel Magic, it'll get rid of a lot of the negative effects that your allies are facing. Spirit Guardians, it's technically more of an offensive one, but it creates a no-go zone for the enemies. So it's very nice there. Aura of Life will automatically pick up downed allies at the start of their turn, which is amazing. Circle of Power, I think it's more effective than Protection from Good and Evil. Grid Restoration, just more stuff in Restoration. And despite the nerfs, I still think Force Cage is great. Listen, I get it, it's concentration now, and it costs some gold, but at this point you're 13th level. The gold doesn't matter. The concentration might matter, but I think it's still worth it. So this is more so protecting your allies from like the big boss as you Force Cage them and close them in until you guys are ready to fight that target. So an in-combat guide. So when do you heal? You never heal. We're moving on. Okay, fine. So the problem with healing is that sometimes it's just not worth it. It's sometimes more worth it to just deal damage or do something else. A better uses of healing are first pre-healing before the fight. Abilities such as Aid and another ability that gives out temporary hit points that last like an hour or more. Do that stuff first. Make sure you're healthy enough to go into the fight before having to actually use any healing during the fight. Because you're wasting action, you're wasting precious resources. You definitely always heal someone when they're down. It is back to being more action economy for your team. And just people are up and it's good all around. You get to have fun with the game as well. So when you actually should heal is when an ally is half or under their HP. And you can get them high enough where they won't go down on their next attack. But also, the next attack will take them down. So there's a very kind of gap between maybe like 50% to 35 to 40, 35. Somewhere there. Another thing too is we have short rest things. You have free hit die. You get half of them per day. Amazing. Use these hit die. So we're going to go over some practice scenarios. An enemy ends up dealing 10 damage on average to your ally, which they do, and your ally has a maximum of 30 hit points. At this point, your ally can probably survive about 2 more hits, so there's no real need to heal them immediately. They might be a good target, however, for some offshoot of AoE healing, such as Mass Healing Word. Your ally takes 15 damage, and they have a maximum of 30. This would be a good idea to heal them, because you're not sure the next hit could knock them down. Maybe it underrolls, maybe overrolls, but this would be okay. We would want them to heal to make sure they maintain second chance on the next round. You can heal a lot more with Cure Wounds, or if you want to make it quick and you have other things to do, another damage deal, you can make it only a healing word, and then you can use your action for some other cantrip to knock someone else out. Because If your enemy is dead, they're not dealing damage, and that is one less person you have to heal. If they take something like 20 damage out of the maximum of 30, you could put a big healing resource into this, but they might end up going down anyways. So if you're really going to try to heal them past this point, you have to put in something big, such as Lay on Hands, or upcasting spells, or something like Polymorph. And then finally, if they take 25 out of 30 damage, they're likely going down, and no amount of healing could heal them up. It's way better to just let them go down and heal them up on your turn from 0, and then start pawing them back and forth until the enemy gets bored. Healing word. This is where healing word always comes in as the best quick pickup. You don't care about how many hit points you give them. You just need to give them 1. That's all that matters. So, buffing and debuffing. When you buff, you generally just make one of your allies stronger in certain aspects. When you debuff, it's not yet guaranteed you'll debuff in most cases, but you can normally affect 1 or more enemies that all of your allies can then gang up on. So it'll buff your chance of success that way, if you think about it in reverse. Normally, during single monster encounters, that's when you normally want to use a crippling debuff. We saw like Hold Person or Dominate Person there. Those are the good ones to use. As for widespread encounters, you can also be using those hypnotic patterns and slows or stuff like that. It is normally in encounters where you face a mid-level threat and about monsters equal to the player strength and amount of players. That's when you want to start buffing your allies, because they might not be able to concentrate and focus fire on one person in particular. They might have to spread their damage, and you want to give them the best chances of spreading their damage. So you might want to bless them here, for example, or Mantle of something. I forgot what the mantle was called. That one. Now, most of the buffing and debuffing spells are concentration, so normally you can only be able to do 1 on a massive scale. So in practice, Bless and Bane are one and the same, passing them for 3 of your allies or 3 of your enemies. Bless buffs a d4 to the saving throws and attack rolls, while Bane drops a d4 for enemy saving throws or attack rolls, but they have to make a charisma save for it. Pass without a trace. I've already mentioned this. A great way to sneak into anywhere for free, and then you gain advantage on that first initiative attack as it goes away. Also, a good way to get yourself an advantage is Fairy Fire, Blindness or Deafness, or Hold Person, which is great where you can gang up on either a group or one enemy and just go to town on them. Oh, there we go. Crusader's Mantles is a good way to buff up your allies, as well as Fly, as it allows you to whiz on by. Or you can step on the pedal and go with Haste if you're feeling risky with one of your allies. Another good way to also avoid damage altogether is to slow down the horde with Spike Growth or Hypnotic Pattern. Slow even will do. Now we're going to go on to Protective Magic, or Protective Abilities. So when you want to protect someone, it's normally up to the situation that calls for it. You can give out buffs at the start of the adventure day if they last that long, or you could provide them when you really need them to avoid taking damage. This is normally where you wouldn't heal, but instead cast protective magics to try and avoid them taking damage in the first place. So not all protective magics safeguard people. Some are about repositioning allies or foes, taking focus fire away from allies onto someone else. And finally, a lot of these spells can also be creature dependent, being able to protect you from outerplaying threats or block off very strong combatants. So in practice, Shield of Faith, classic +2, It's pretty reliable, but if you could, and you're fighting good or evil aligned monsters, such as Fey or Undead, that will provide the person with much greater strength of avoiding attacks. Then there's Blur and Mirror Image, which is a nice way to safeguard yourself, because if you go down, the party goes down. Lesser and Greater Restoration to cure unwanted status ailments. Vortex Work to manipulate the battlefield for your favor or the enemy's disfavor. Spirit Guardians for, again, a nice defensive offensive spell, and Spell Magic to shut down any powerful consistent spell that has thrown your parties away. And again, still, despite the nerfs, Force Cage, you can single-handedly get rid of one of the threats on the battlefield when you're at that high level. So that's all for me today. Like, subscribe, leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Have a good one.